Hello everyone, Shadefire here, and today I'm taking a first impressions look at Thomas Was Alone. Interesting little indie game that I've heard plenty of good things about, and thought I should check out for myself. So let's just jump right in as usual.
Thomas was alone. Wow, a weird first thought to have.
So right now all we can do is move left and right. Also, Thomas is this square here.
Thomas decided to start listing his observations for posterity. 1. The whole alone thing. 2. Portals. They led somewhere. He'd yet to work out where. 3. Falling. Thomas was absolutely fantastic at falling. He was almost as good at falling as he was at observing. Okay, interesting. Thomas couldn't fall past this block. Think, damn it, think! What if there was some kind of inverted fall? Some way to... what's the word? Jump.
So as you can probably tell, it's a very sort of narrative-driven,
It worked!
simple-looking puzzle
Thomas
platformer.
had solved the great inverted fall mystery.
With our lovely British narrator.
A big jump. But Thomas noted there was no real danger in missing it. The world didn't want him to fail here. It was pushing him, but gently. This all seemed a little dangerous. The world was not to be trusted. It was unstable, and it seemed to Thomas that it could let him...
Alright, so clearly Thomas cannot swim.
This all seemed a little
I don't know how I'm supposed
dangerous.
to get this.
The world was...
I got an achievement for killing ourselves there. Oh, I guess you keep them even when you
This
fail.
all seemed a little dangerous. The world was not to be trusted. It was unstable, and it seemed to Thomas that it could let him down at any moment.
So despite the narrative focus, it seems safe to presume that this game gets more and more complicated as we
Thomas
go.
wondered whether the portals were actually taking him anywhere. He felt like he was making progress, but there wasn't really any way to know. He seemed to be moving predominantly up and to the right, which might, or might not, be important. It might have been paranoia again, but Thomas could have sworn the world was becoming more complicated. It always seemed to be one step ahead of his skills. It had been designed just for him. He wondered why. Was the world testing him? No. Too obvious.
Well, I mean, they did mention at the beginning that these were designed AIs, so presumably these are just AI testing chamber type things.
Something about the boiling, toxic, glowing water intimidated Thomas. He didn't like it. He certainly didn't want to swim in it. He made an... The loneliness was getting to Thomas. No amount of observation or obsessive note-taking could combat that.
hell. So, oh, okay, good. Saved it. So already the game's getting a little bit more complicated. Got a bit of a aerial jumping maze. Though, as far as I've heard, this game is still fairly short.
The world was training him. He could feel himself getting smarter. There was the mental list to consider. Over the minutes and seconds since his spontaneous generation, he'd become a pretty skilled jumper. He was evolving. He just wished he had someone to share it with.
You can't really jump on these. You can see I'm only getting a little bit of height because of the constant bouncing.
Chris took an immediate and deep dislike to the skinny red rectangle. Who the hell did this Thomas think he was?
So now we can switch to other characters. Chris here. He's kind of fat, and therefore does not jump as high as Thomas. And you can see to finish the level, we have to get both of them out. So to get Thomas out, or to get Chris out, we need to jump on top of Thomas. And then hop in. That seemed simple enough.
Chris had been doing fine. He wasn't the highest jumper, but he'd held his own. He'd even been graceful at times. Well, not technically graceful. It's probably the wrong word, but you know, fine. There was that skinny little runt leaping about like he owned the place.
Now where does Thomas have to get to? Oh, just here.
Okay, this was more like it. A glowy white thing. Only Chris could get to it, which of course made it all the more enticing. What would it do? What new opportunity might this switch open up to him? Great. Another chance for Thomas to jump slightly higher than Chris. How fortunate. Seriously, this made the whole switch pressing thing entirely worthwhile.
So presumably if they keep adding characters in, this is how it's going to get more complicated.
It did not seem good. Chris was pretty scared. Little Red seemed fine, happy to be on his merry little adventure. Chris couldn't shake the feeling that things had taken a significant turn for the worse since Thomas had joined in. Sure, he'd been able to piggyback his way to ever so slightly higher platforms, but where had that got him? Well, to ever so slightly higher platforms, which was sort of his point.
So I gotta do some long jumping on both of these characters. Combination of the smooth British voice acting and the mellow music really makes this game kind of chill.
Chris stared at Thomas with pure hatred. He seemed so very happy at their situation. Friends together, a brave fellowship of quadrilaterals on a quest for greatness. That would be fine. But it was all the obvious observation that Thomas was doing which grated. Every time they saw something vaguely new, Chris would hear a satisfied little from the vaulting idiot. He hoped the next portal would split them up, if only for a few levels.
I mean, once we have like 4 characters, maybe, you know, and they gotta get all to different exits, then I can see how this would make the levels quite a bit longer. But it's still certainly no Super Meat Boy.
John knew. He knew that this was his chance, a moment to shine. This was game day.
That worked out better than I thought it would.
This would not do. John needed room to show off his exceptional skills. As it was, he was trapped on the wrong side of these little dot things. Where did they come from, anyway? John inhaled the air of the open space, and it smelled of awesome.
So John can just jump ridiculously high, but of course,
to flex
he's
those
hard to fit
muscles,
through small areas.
Put his training to use, time to show those little dots how it was done. John decided to press the switch to let the little dots catch up with him. John cared for his new allies. You could tell from the sympathetic expression he'd practiced in the mirror all these years.
I feel like I don't have too much to say about this game. It sort of speaks for itself better. Oh dear. Just trying to drown Thomas as he appears to be the star of our show. Might actually need not Chris. I've already forgotten this game's name. John to get up here. Alright, well, since this is a fairly short game, I don't want to dive too deep into it and give too much away. Suffice to say that I think that's a pretty good look at Thomas Was Alone. It's just a neat little indie puzzle platformer among so many others. Anyhow, that's Thomas Was Alone. I've been Shadefire, and I'll see you all around next time. And I will probably still be alone.